Hello and welcome to another show of the ADHD Goals Podcast. I am delighted to welcome a special guest with me today. She is also a fellow trainee with me as an ADHD coach at ADHD Works. Hello, Tracy Lomax. How are you today?
I'm not too bad, Laurence, actually. I'm doing okay. It's not a bad start for the week. The weather's good.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm doing all right.
So whereabouts are you based?
Me, I'm in Peterborough.
Peterborough.
Yeah. And we're starting to get some better press with Peterborough. It's really traditionally not had good press for Peterborough. And it took me a while to do that because we just moved from a village. We'd lived in a village for like over 10 years and we moved back into Peterborough. And there was a little bit of, oh, hang on. But we're in a lovely place. I'm really blessed to live in a beautiful house, in a lovely. It's a village that's been consumed by the cities, but it's beautiful and and I'm lucky to work from home. So I'm
Are you near? Now, I've mentioned this to somebody before, and then they immediately corrected me about the pronunciation of the place. Now, I'm going to say Neen from memory, but I think I was told that it was Nen. Nen. Okay.
Yeah. So the River Neen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they call it, so especially if you go up towards Northampton, it's definitely called the Nen. It's Nen College and things like that.
Yeah.
So pronunciation around here is a big thing.
Yeah.
This is a weird place. My children and my children are, they've kind of acquired the strange Peterborough thing to combine the use of things like grass, bath and bath, which I have struggled to say because I'm kind of actually originally from London. If I let myself slip into the accent, you'll hear it. And Kent, and then moved up rather traumatically. It was a traumatic move to Wisbech, which is in the Fens. I could put the accent on for you, but for the people that might listen that live over there, I'm not going to. Yeah. But Wisbech and Kings Lynn and out that way. The Peterborough is in a really kind of unique place. It actually has its own kind of weird ecosystem that goes on when we get weather. So weather systems seem to come from each and every area. So you go 20 minutes and it'll be one kind of weather system and 20 the other. But 45 minutes in London, and I almost live on the A1, so we're nicely collected here.
I really love the park there. Is it Nen Park or Neen Park?
Neen Park. Yeah.
Yes, I've stayed there a couple of times. So I've got I've got a camper van. Well, it's a transit van that I converted to a camper van, and I stay at the caravan and motorhome.
That's
where I was going to say website. I mean campsite.
Yeah. Ferry Meadows. Right. So
that's it. Yes, Ferry Meadows.
Ferry Meadows. Well, Ferry Meadows. If you come down to Ferry Meadows again in your van, then you could almost yell, and I'd hear you from my house.
Oh wow!
So pretty much opposite Ferry Meadows. Although that campsite and that part is so beautiful, and we've done the campervan thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say we've moved on, but it sounds like we just got old. We've got a caravan now. So we went and bought a caravan last year. And because I'm limited now as to what I can do with my health, unfortunately. Yeah. And it kind of ties me a little bit. And but I love to, we both love kind of getting away and doing stuff we always have done. So we actually took the caravan over at the start of the season over to Ferry Meadows. Yeah. And it was fantastic, but the Wi-Fi wasn't that great, so that was the only thing. But love it over there. And,
I've got dreams of being sort of like a digital nomad. Not completely, but I mean like a during the week digital nomad. But it does worry me the access to good Wi-Fi out and about as
There's
to whether that will
solutions.
actually, yeah.
There's solutions, Laurence. You just need, yeah. So we've looked into this a bit. And I don't know, is this the thing? Maybe in a few more kind of like months and years, Laurence, you'll know from your interviews whether that's the thing with ADHD is. But that kind of desire to be on the road, but connected still and doing stuff. Because yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I looked because we had, so as I say, we just moved to caravanning. We had initially a bongos. Don't know if you heard of the Mazda bongos. So we had those with the flip top lids.
Yeah.
So we had those when the kids are small. And I remember going and collecting the second one we had actually when I was about 8 months pregnant. Huge, and look on the man's face when I kind of like arrived and kind of ungraciously really kind of dismounted from the seat of the van that we were exchanging it for this another one basically the same but just a few years younger. And so I was heavily pregnant with my son and I had my toddler daughter with me and my husband. And we loved it. We went on many a memorable trip with the kids and the bongos, and then we went to we got a T5 after that, and we really enjoyed our T5. But again, unfortunately, it was in the end, it was just the fact that I just needed my body needs something a little bit better than even than the bed in the T5, which was always comfy, but just a little bit of a squish,
Well, you mentioned a moment or two ago there about your health and your conditions, and I just wondered if you might be able to tell us a little bit about sort of your background and your ADHD and other things. So just give the listener a background into your journey.
Okay, so me, and it is a journey. I think everything with me is a journey, and I've learned that now, and I know that. And so
that's the caravan analogy, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm good with analogies. Everything kind of comes to me in pictures and analogies. So I will. You could probably do a buzzword on how many analogies I use.
Go for it. When I'm thinking about stuff to sort of communicate in coaching, I think this is not going to land unless there's an analogy there, because I think you can go into the detail and then you say, "Do you get it?" And they go, "No." So unless there's another,
I'm learning. I'm going to try to learn to do more translation stories. But you asked me about me. Okay. So so I had absolutely not an inkling that I had ADHD or autism with a particular flavour I've now discovered, which is PDA. And that really doesn't have a very nice title to it, so I won't unpick the acronym, but you can go and look at the acronym and look at what it means, and then and that will make sense. But I'm dyspraxic as well. So
is
I didn't know these things.
The numbers?
No, that's dyspraxic is coordination, movement, but so much more as well. So it's another you can be dyspraxic without anything else, but I'm lucky enough to have them all in the mix. So dyspraxia is the reason why I cannot throw a ball. Well, I can throw a ball, but I've got no idea where it's going to go. I have to put an immense amount of thought and effort and still not get it right. My brain just does not know when to release a ball. Which made kind of games at school just a bit difficult. It means you struggle with handwriting, and I was going into a little bit of things about that, and time laces. So it's something that they look for in children, and they look for it quite keenly now, I think. But as with everything else to do with neurodivergence, if you're a child of the 70s, as I was, it was simply not something that was ever going to be noticed. So I managed to get all the way through to age 48 without an inkling. And actually, it kind of, as with men, I don't know if it's something other people can relate to, but I tend to just have light bulb moments. So I don't know at all about something. It will not have crossed my mind. I will have no idea. I will not join the dots. But then all of a sudden there'll be a light bulb moment, which obviously has some trigger, but sometimes aware, sometimes I'm not aware. And then all of a sudden, all of the pieces join. It's like, the puzzle will complete in front of my eyes, and I'll go, wow, okay. So that's what happened with me. And the reason why is because,
I was going to ask,
sorry,
what happened at 48 that,
well, 48. Yeah, so that's one of my worst ADHD things, Laurence. I'm really sorry. I am trying each day to make a conscious effort, really hard not to interrupt. And please don't ever think if it happens 10 times in the next hour, and I apologize for anyone listening, but I'm trying to control it. It's because I've just reached the end of your sentence before you've got there, and my brain's already saying the next thing. And I know it's an ADHD thing, and I know lots of people hopefully will relate, but for me at the moment it's getting worse. So and that's a lot of things that are going on. A lot of things are getting worse at the moment, in terms of presentation, or more, not worse, more extreme, more noticeable. So I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay.
I should let you go back if you can remember your sentence and ask me the question again. I'll take a drink.
No, because I have a thing of I'll start asking a question and I'll be thinking, I don't know how to end this, or I will keep talking until it looks like you're ready to take over. So it should work all right if you want to interrupt. So no, I was just saying, what you mentioned, it was at 48 that you started to get diagnoses or find out some of these things. So I was just wondering what was happening at 48 that triggered what challenges were happening.
Yeah, lots and lots happened. So so it's just over a year now from where we are and ago, and we just moved into this house. Actually, we moved in on a freezing cold December day. Moved into this house, and that was mid-December. Huge rush to get everything unpacked and ready for Christmas, because Christmas is a really important time for me and the family. And that had all gone through and it was all lovely, but then I crashed.
Okay.
And I crashed and burned. And I crashed and burned as I've done many a time. And I was exhausted. But I was trying to I was trying not to be. I was trying to do what I always do, which is use my ability to research and find answers and find information, and use that to kind of give me a path, give me a focus, give me a reason and a way to move forward from a point of being completely and utterly burnt out emotionally, physically, and mentally. And so I remember quite clearly actually just sitting in my bedroom. It must have been later, and I don't often do that. I'm usually another reason, another signal burnout is when I actually go to bed and then I start to read something at that point, because I've kind of lost my structure, lost my kind of all the strategies and things have kind of fallen down. And so I was reading, and what I was reading was into ADHD. But I was reading because my son was struggling. He'd been struggling for a long time with school. He's 18 now. And I was just trying to see if I could find another way to move forward. And I was looking again at private diagnosis and reading about people's accounts of living with ADHD. And for whatever reason, that particular time, because that wasn't the first time I burnt out. I now know the word for it. I didn't really know it before. But it just kind of, the penny dropped. The penny just dropped. It hadn't dropped before then. I think before then I'd been so, because of, I've got my children 19 and 18 now. And I think that up until even that point, I was still just in mum mode. And I was just everything when I thought and read about ADHD, I was only ever thinking about my son.
Mm.
And the reason why is because that had been planted, it was a pediatrician, a consultant that had said to us that she suspected it in him and several years earlier. But nothing, it didn't work out, and that's a common story. That's an altogether so common and terrible story at the minute. That
It didn't work out, like you
about
couldn't
him
get
being
a diagnosis.
yeah, about him even being able to move forward. And I now know actually, unfortunately, it's something I've been trying to not beat myself up about, but because I didn't realise that my brain worked so fundamentally different to other people, and that I approach situations in a different way, and that things that are really strong in me, like if somebody in a position of authority and knowledge and wisdom says, this is the situation, then I just go with that. So that's what happened. It was, a case of the pediatrician did all they could, realize the school, this is several years earlier, this is about 3 or 4 years ago now, couple years before the pandemic. So about 2018 maybe. But anyway, so the school had said, well, we've got lots of other children with more needs. We're a bit stretched. And this was a school that's in quite a rural area, in terms of funding and everything else. And so kind of weeks went into months, went into years, and unfortunately, the school did what they said what they were only able to do, or what they told me or implied or whatever, but they simply carried on as normal because he didn't have a diagnosis, whilst at the same time, just doing some very kind of minimal interventions. But effectively, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And so he went down and down and down. And
at a crucial time of
at a crucial time, because then we had, so by the time I'd sat there, that was end of 22, we'd had a lot of trauma as well. So everyone had been through the trauma of the pandemic. But unfortunately, my dad took his life in November 19, just before. And we didn't have the funeral until the February. So we almost, as a family, and that's family at the wider sense, because obviously, it was a difficult thing and actually completely unexpected. So that was February, and then in March we went into lockdown. I'm going to have to let the puppy in. This is very unprofessional. Okay. Just a second. Sorry, that was either a good or bad place to be. It's a bit dramatic there. So it's been difficult. So I've been there kind of doing the best I could with the knowledge that I had. And, at the same time, I had my daughter who was just a school year above, and she was struggling with her own issues of anxiety mostly, and being a high achiever. And she was a school year above, so she was also struggling with the kind of natural but difficult layer of judgment or perceived judgment on her part of other people about how her brother was being disciplined, because Seb, I'm sure he's going to be a bit embarrassed for me to mention him, but both my children, like I, are really intelligent. Yeah, I think when I was an early teen, my IQ was tested at some point. I was like 140 or something. They were testing me for Mensa, or pre-Mensa. I don't know. Never actually got tested with Mensa. I moved house a lot. But anyway, so they're incredibly intelligent at primary school. They thrive at primary school. Life is easy. Life is lovely up
It's
until about
structured
age
as
10.
well. Yeah.
It's structured and they're cared for, and it's completely different. But then, unfortunately, things start to get a little bit more difficult as they age and as the environment changes around them, to more kind of conditioning them to achieving, but in a more, in a very structured and very structured environment that really doesn't fit children that are in any way not able to manage that. And so Seb was intelligent, but he couldn't manage the environment. He couldn't manage, he just couldn't manage it. And because he didn't have a diagnosis, because the pediatrician had said, great, it's not epilepsy. That's not, but I think it's ADHD, but I can't do anything else to be at the school. That was kind of all that was there. And until the point that you start on the pathway to being diagnosed, and then ultimately we are diagnosed as a child, there is hopefully maybe there's support in other areas, but not in Seb's school. So it was difficult. So I just, so to kind of put it all back to 22, I sat there and I was trying to find a way that I could do something to kind of, just because things were on a downward path and it was affecting the whole family. And I was just at the end of my tether, really. And then the light bulb went on, and then that actually was a really good thing, because my immediate thought was, well, okay, so if I have ADHD, then does that mean that Seb can get a diagnosis quicker? That was literally my one and only thought, I think, at that point, and I pursued that. Went and saw the doctor on was the first working day that I could. Gave me that kind of lift and pick up I needed to kind of get myself into I can do this place again, and kind of was able to get back into work, which is so weird. Yeah, as is always the case, I think, and as I know very well, after the rain comes the sunshine. So I was okay in that respect. And then so that's kind of how it all initially happened. But it was just ADHD in my head.
Yeah.
And it really was it felt like a label that I'd just be applied with. But actually it came, the diagnosis, the process of being diagnosed, and
it's occurred to me, have you ever read or seen Catch-22?
Yeah, I've not read it, but I've seen it.
Yeah. So the expression "it's a Catch-22 situation" comes from this scenario in the book where I think they're Allied fighter pilots, bombers in the Second World War, and they keep having to do these bombing runs. And they're told that after a certain amount they can stop. But that gets extended and extended. So they're going, they're very distressed, and they want to. The only way to get out of it is to go to the doctors and say that they are. I can't remember what but then they're mentally unwell, or that they need to be discharged. But the Catch-22 situation is that if they are able enough to get the appointment and recognize that they're mentally ill, that they're well enough to carry on. So it's and so I just find that it's a very difficult process to go through and do all the paperwork and the applications, and then get other people to, because you've got to get other people to give references and stuff, and that's immediate overwhelm. You're like, you've got loads of things triggering. You're like, well, I don't want to be able to rely on somebody else. You've got like sort of an RSD from asking somebody else's help, or and I think to be able to get through the process in itself is kind of like it's like a catch-22. Well, you were able to do the process, so
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
you're
Everything.
organized. Yeah.
Completely. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that catch-22 thing, I think that is something I should write down, because I use the word paradox a lot now
Yeah.
about my life, living in a paradox. But catch-22, absolutely. I'm always, everything is always catch-22.
Mm.
And completely, and I mean, just kind of focusing on the diagnosis process. Yeah, for me, it was, I can kind of watch now, it's thinking back, I can kind of see how it's exactly how, you know, days move forward and things happen the way things always happen with me. So it's like, okay, yep, ADHD. Wow, okay, I'd never realised why did I not see it? And then it was immediately, okay, so I'll just get diagnosed and that will help set. That's literally as simplistic as my brain initially dealt with it. It was,
Mm.
it was so kind of clear cut. And that was fine, because that was like, problem solved, and I always need closure. I always need things tied up quite neatly and in a
Mhm.
box and done. And I think that's because I just, my mind is always so busy. I there's all thousand things. So if I can actually tie one thing up and get it done, then I really love that. But yeah, so the process was difficult because um going to the doctor wasn't hard. I was okay. I see so many doctors. I must have over 100 appointments a year with medical professionals at the moment. My life is just ruled by, I have a full-time job attending to my health.
Mhm.
Um, so I was okay with the doctor, and ironically, it was the doctor I'd seen a few months earlier when Seb was really struggling, and he kind of looked at me and said, yeah, okay, yeah, Tracy, I kind of, you know, I don't need to ask you many questions, but I do need to tell you it'll be 7 years. Unless you're abusing alcohol or drugs, it will be 7 years. Um,
Wait,
and
wait, wait, wait. For you
yeah,
or
for me to
for
be
7?
diagnosed, 7 years to be diagnosed. That's what I
Wow.
was told. Yeah, between 5 to 7 years. And he actually kind of shared that his partner was in the same situation, and that they themselves were going to go private. They were saving. He was a
Mm.
doctor saving, so he could
Mm.
fund his partner to go privately for diagnosis. So he gave me the contact details for Berkeley psychiatrists in London, and referred me, and I was lucky enough to be able to afford to pay for that.
Mhm.
So again, the kind of like the nuts and bolts of the process, that seeing the doctor, getting the details, and then managing, making the contact and finding out the price and finding out the process. And then, the admin side of receiving the paperwork was easy. The paperwork landing and then realizing that I'd have to involve other people, that was difficult,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I had only just recognized it in myself a few days earlier, but I hadn't absorbed it. I hadn't looked at it. I hadn't picked up and gone, wow, this is my life. This is how now I can look back at my life and realize why I struggled so much.
Mhm.
And I think, like everyone that's being diagnosed now, is you realize that you go through the whole kind of curve of emotions. There is a part where I don't do anger really. I very rarely get angry. Um, my husband will tell you something different. I explode and I'm fine. Explode and I'm fine. But that's overwhelmed. But I was kind of a little bit angry, because the depth to which I'd plummeted at various points in my life, how difficult things had been, how hard I had to battle to do so many things, how if I wanted, you know, I just I've worked so hard, and the exhaustion of just being on edge, so present and so concentrated at every moment of the day in contact with anyone else to make sure
Mm.
that I did it right. Whatever scenario I needed to play out, I played the part. So to know that someone could have spotted something, there was something there, you know.
Mm.
at key points like university, that was
Yeah.
really hard and
Well,
A-levels, but
it makes me wonder when you were saying, when at that moment when you needed to reach out to other people to help with the application, and that was a challenging part. What's forming in my mind is, and I'm wondering if it's the same, is that you said that you sort of started to learn a bit about ADHD when you were looking for your son, so that was like a couple of years before that, or I wonder if before then what your knowledge of ADHD was, because for me personally, I'd heard the term, it was, but very, very little did I know about it. And I think that the term ADHD is not necessarily a good one at explaining what it is. So I wouldn't have been able to tell you what any of the conditions were at that point, and therefore you sort of label it as like a negative thing, and therefore when somebody suggests that you might have it, you go, oh no, I don't want that. So you don't believe it. But it's only when you look into it, and I think what gets missed, and there's a point what I'm saying, is that there are a lot of positives to the way in which somebody's brain with ADHD works, but it's a difficult barrier to overcome, to talk with people that may be neurotypical about the fact that you might have ADHD, and there might be some accommodations that we might need to make, particularly in the workplace. Somebody who is in the workplace that is at a place of, sort of looking after people like HR or your manager, they instantly probably, their reaction is going to be, oh, okay, what's this? How much is this going to cost us to sort out? And instantly the person with ADHD who's coming to the person at work to tell them this is going to fear all those negative labels that are there in the first place, and have that rejection of now that we've got a problem on our hands. And I think there needs to be more said about the benefits of what accommodating somebody with ADHD can bring into the workplace to make that transition or those conversations easier.
I completely agree. And there's so many different, I mean, we're classically, Laurence, we're going off in so many different directions here, and I'm kind of on every one with you. So I've got like things, each aspect that you just touched on, I've got answers and things to follow up on, I think. So, I mean, I think kind of going back to the process and what happened. So I had my own personal kind of thoughts as they related to me going on, which I think everybody does, which is like, wow, this is me, making sense of it. And it's not something that plays out in a couple of hours. It's literally, over days and weeks, and still now, it's a long and continuing process where you keep kind of revisiting, because it's your whole life. And that's what, in the process to be diagnosed, you've got to look back at your whole life. You have to, it has to, the psychiatrist has to assess and be confident and have evidence to show that it was there when you were a child. So, at this point in time, I'm looking at it, I'm 48 years old. I have very limited family, just because of unfortunate situation, that had played out with my dad and then through the pandemic. And so my mum was getting quite poorly, and I had to ask my sister to kind of, over several weeks, to try and confirm things with my mum that I'd picked up from uncles and aunts. And I had to go back through all the old photos that I had. I went back through, luckily I had my like some school reports that my mum, so the process was, on the one hand, it was quite nice. I got to look back at stuff and think about stuff. But on the other hand, I had to involve other people, and I didn't want to involve anyone because I wasn't ready to. Because, like the first thing you said was about the not knowing. I had, ashamedly, very little knowledge. I knew my sister's son, that they suspected, but I'd watched her go through the same thing, and kind of she still didn't freely talk about it. And whenever it was spoken about, it was like a negative thing, it was, and so my knowledge and kind of understanding was so limited, and only really stretching into the, relationship with, young boys, that manifestation that you see of young boys, that I'd also seen to a certain extent in my son. And yeah, that it was something that was, that wouldn't apply to me. And I think, again, when I first realized, I didn't absorb it. I absorbed it only enough to use the information to take the next step in regards to my son. But then obviously it became very real when I got the paperwork. And when you go through, I think for me, the thing that's really, and there's so many fantastic people talking about the topic of masking and women with ADHD and neurodivergence. I'm not going to attempt to be anything, as articulate or speak as profoundly and, as some of these people are doing. But, I only realized in truly looking at the questions and trying to answer them how much or I didn't know myself, or how hard I had to work to actually find myself beneath all the role playing, beneath all of the and that in itself sounds weird, because that sounds like whenever I interact, it's false and it's put on. It's not. It's just that since the very first memories I have, I've always observed people, I've watched people, I've mirrored, I've learned what they do, I've studied, and just absorbed and learned how to do it, how to do it without, having those uncomfortable moments that come when you get it wrong, or at worst, those painful moments that come when you get it wrong. And you still get it wrong. You still can't do it 100%. Because we're all human, and we can't actually read people really well. I am incredibly empathetic, which comes from studying people, but I also can't read people very well. So it was it was really difficult, and I didn't want to share it because I needed to get my own head around it. But also, I was aware that if I was that, as a really incredibly open-minded person who wants and truly believes that everybody on the planet is equal, and there is nothing and no one that's, makes one person more superior to another. So I knew that other people, and that could be in my own family and friends, people I work with, might then change their opinion of me. Or actually at that moment, I had to then go to people and ask them, and they might think that one or two things. Well, I suppose it's the same, but well, hang on, you're not like this, are you? And then to actually stop and have to think really deeply before they could find the example, because you have to write examples. They have to. My husband did it with me, and he had to be really precise, and it took us about 3 weeks. He needed me to work it through, and almost to kind of say, well, look, actually in this situation, this is how I do things. And then for him to actually, because we've been together for 30 years, for him actually then to stop and think, yeah, you do. But we're so used to ADHD, it's in my family, it's in my wider family. It's probably undiagnosed, but in his family. So we're all used to it. The friends that we have, even some of them, pretty sure, and it's not just a case of once you're diagnosed, you've kind of diagnosed everyone else. It's not that, but it's so comfortable. It's so normal. So to actually look at it through the prism of, okay, you do this way, whereas someone else might not, or the majority, as we're now, as I'm now told and should say, the majority don't. So it was really hard. It took weeks, and it was really, really difficult. And my husband had to go through the working out for himself and my family as to why I was doing it. And my daughter was worried and my son was worried. Why do you want to do this? Why would you want to do this? Because they didn't have any knowledge and they didn't know. So all they could go to, like most people, a starting point is unfortunately, it's that negative side. It's something that you wouldn't want. So, it was difficult. But when I got to the point of having the actual assessment, that was fine. It was actually quite nice to just be in a space where I could talk, like now, to someone that knew, that actually was going to talk and listen to me curiously and without judgment. And that felt good, that. And I think then after that lit something for me, which I've really now embraced fully. No, I can't say fully. I've really embraced almost fully. That it's not a bad thing. It actually, it's just who I am. It's just, and there's so many people, and it's absolutely nothing that should ever be stigmatized, and it's absolutely something that should be that everyone should be aware of and conversant in. People are pretty conversant in dyslexia, although maybe not as well as I'm sure the dyslexic community would like, but it definitely shouldn't be a problem, and it sits there, unfortunately, alongside autism, which also has arguably, potentially, maybe even a stronger stigma attached. And it was during this time of reading to try and find out, to get more kind of information and to try and find better ways to articulate it and speak to my family and to kind of bring up their level of knowledge and tried to make sure that they were okay as I headed toward spending a huge amount of money to be diagnosed and to get essentially a label. And of course, the reality was that I was able to say, I think this will help me. When they were ready, I said, I was able to talk to them and say, I think it will help me because there is a treatment, there is medication that could make things easier for me, and that will be really different. That will, I'm really looking forward to the prospect of there being something that might help, because at that moment in my life, and still now, anything that helped, anything, just the smallest of things that could help would really have an impact. Because I was at overload.
So since then,
Yep.
What sort of things, if any, have helped? Have you had any big turnarounds? Are you able to sort of go into some things that have worked for you?
Yeah. So I'm lucky, I think, because I've heard more and more that firstly, people start, I think, with some apprehension around medication. And I remember being apprehensive about medication. I remember being a person that didn't want to take any tablets. I also remember being like my daughter is almost phobic about taking medication and tablets as a child. I think, choking on a cough sweet or travel seat as I did, and similar to my daughter, kind of like, nope, never doing that again. So I went through most of my life until another changing point earlier in my life where when I needed it and the solution was tablets, and I had to then take them. So by the time, after years of living with chronic illness, by the time it came to the prospect of considering medication for autism, for ADHD, all I had to do was research it and understand what type of medications there were, what they were likely to offer me, what those effects could be, what the side effects might be, what the papers say, the literature out there says, the scientific, data and information that's available, because that's my go-to. That's what I do. I read and read. I research. I do, thesis amount of research for any topic that I'm interested in. And so, the psychiatrist, I think he used the analogy, which made me smile at the time. He said, "You're using coffee at the moment," he said, "Tracy." He said, "Look, I'm taking away your coffee." And I remember almost wasn't going, "What?" I have
Mhm.
coffee and dark chocolate in my life. Those are my two sins. I can be bribed with either. Well, kind
Yeah.
of. So you're taking away coffee, and I had to kind of, what do you mean you're taking away coffee? Well, just for the mornings. Right, okay, that's fine. I can go with just the mornings. Right, maybe one in the afternoon. But I'm going to give you, he said, Chase, think of your coffee as like an old banger. And I'm going to give you a supercar. I'm going to give you a racing car to swap
Yeah.
out your coffee. That's what he
Yeah.
said. And I kind of smiled because I thought, okay, I'm not that interested in cars, but I kind of get where you're going with that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to give me a racing car, then okay, I get the analogy, and if that's going to increase my focus and actually enable me to sit down at my desk at the start of a working day and just work,
hmm
that's all that's all I needed. That's all I wanted, was something that was going to help that, because
Well, that's that because
it did.
you talked about apprehension
Yeah.
before, and I can only speak for myself, but I've heard it said before as well that people are apprehensive about, well, will this change the way I think? Because obviously we've only lived inside one head, so but we've become aware that, when we're having conversations with people, the people say, wow, how did you get there? Or, it becomes apparent that you think in a slightly different way, or you connect wider dots, and it makes perfect sense to you. And they're like,
yeah.
So you come to, well, I love the way my brain works. The only challenge is that as I've got older, the ability to maintain something for a long period of time to reach a specific goal has got harder, and that's connected to lots of different things around, just repeated signals of failing to do something, or wanting to do something else before it's complete. And so those challenges got to such a point that it was like, I need to figure this out, which is why I went and sort of started investigating what that could be. But the point, to bring it back, is when medication it comes into the picture, you're like, I don't want to lose the way I don't want to, I want to be able to focus like in, air quotes, normal people, but I don't want to lose the way my brain thinks. So my apprehension about medication is that, and I just wonder if that was similar to your apprehension, and whether or not anything changed in that sense when you started taking medication.
Well, for me, I think because I was at that point, I'd kind of before I went to the doctor on that kind of early January day, I'd burnt out again. And people never see this, so I'm really, I'm wondering if who might listen to this, and I expect there'll be friends and colleagues that might end up listening. Hopefully they will, because I'll tell them. But everything I'm saying, they won't know of me. They won't recognize all the things we've talked about. They won't know, and they won't recognize. They won't know that the fantastic colleagues that I work with every day, they've started to see a little bit lately of kind of more of me that they wouldn't, because we've been working together for like 4 years now. But they wouldn't have known that January day that I came back to work after Christmas, before I'd seen the doctor, and certainly before I'd had the diagnosis and got the medication, that first week, that second week was so hard, so very hard. I was almost, brought to tears by the fact that I would sit at my desk and want desperately to try to do whatever the things I was doing. Usually it would be something like an email that I had to send, that needed to be of at the right tone and hit the right mark. And that for me has always been something. It's like, like writing a dissertation at university, just always something that I struggle with. And at my lowest, when I'm not okay, when I'm ill, when I'm burnt out, something like that is incredibly difficult. And it's almost like trying to force your brain to do it. You want to do it so much. You literally don't understand. That's how it is for me. I don't understand why. Why is it that I can't do this? And why is it that I'm looking at the 15 lists that I've written that are scattered around my house that I've managed to write, but actually I can't do any of the things? I can do other things and I'm getting stuff done. I might be tidying, I might be arranging my desk, I might be, kind of sorting out my inbox. I might be doing lots of other little things, but not the thing that I desperately want to do, that I keep trying. I mean, I'm literally trying to write an email and I'm writing the words and I'm deleting them. And then I'm writing again and I'm deleting them and I'm getting cross because it's not how I want it to be. And just getting in such a mess. And then, flipping into a meeting and then be fine because I'm in a meeting and I know what to do and I'm achieving something in the meeting and it's all okay. But then come out the meeting again and I'm still struggling. And then I'm exhausted. Like 2, 3 o'clock, I am so exhausted. But so I was at that place. And I think when I saw the doctor, then any apprehension I might have had was kind of, it kind of faded against the actual, the prospect of a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, because I've been doing this for a long time. This kind of burnout, this struggle has been there for a long time. I've been working since I'm 13, but I've been, I left university and got a job and I've been working ever since. And I only haven't worked when I've had my children. And I've always worked. I've always been pushing myself and I've always been pushing forward. And I now work at a senior level. I am capable and I'm competent and I am good at what I do. So to be literally, kind of ground to a halt by your own brain, it's painful. And so when I eventually got the prospect and tried the medication, because equally I've had to, I take a lot of medication. I think I counted the other day, I'm now up to 18 prescriptions a month, Laurence.
Wow.
Okay. So that's not all pills, but that's all things. And I am always at the starting point of, I don't want to try. I only want this if it's going to help me. I only ever have the minimum dose. I challenge and keep it from increasing if I can. I know about cross reactions, so I minimize, so I'm very active in managing everything. But but on that, when I was given the prescription, and then obviously you have to go and pay for it. So that's £100 a month when you're paying for ADHD medication privately. I was kind of, I knew my body. I knew how, to handle the things that I then did experience as I kind of titrated up the doses. It was Elvance that I was given, and I eventually got to a level where it wasn't quite good enough. What it does to me is it does initially kind of push my heart rate up. And I am aware of kind of feeling, internally a little bit like, racing, that like you've had too much coffee. It's not the same as coffee, but it's kind of like that. So, so I let it kick in when I'm having my breakfast. And I basically just kind of, I manage my environment and I manage, everything around me so I can cope with what's going on in my body, but not be over triggered by everything that's going. If I had to go to an office early in the morning, I think I might struggle. I think I'd have to take my medication earlier to get over that initial kind of hump of how I feel. But then I get a good few hours, I would say all of the morning and into mid-afternoon, where I can apply myself. In terms of how it affects me and how I feel.
I was going to ask, just do writing those emails get easier though?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not perfect. It is not a wonder drug. It is not, and that's what the psychiatrist said also. He said, look, this is not going to make you normal. This is not going to make everything easy. It should help you focus. And it did. And it helps me focus enough to actually, so I don't struggle. And I think that's kind of all I've ever really needed and would have hoped for and wanted for, is not to struggle as much. And of course, for me, ADHD is only one piece. I am combined. That's my flavour of ADHD.
Yeah.
So I'm the combined type. So I have both the yay and the oh. So going on. Yeah. And I mean, apart from the shortages, which I think is another thing we could talk about for anyone that's been, medicated for ADHD, the shortages of the drug over the last couple of years has been quite difficult. But I did struggle to find the correct dose. And again, I ended up having to be slightly lower than probably what would be optimum to me, because the next dose was too much.
Yeah.
And I couldn't manage. So I settled on the 40 that I'm on. And I was lucky actually because I know myself so well, and I know how drugs affect me, and I know, therefore I knew how this might affect me, and I could feel it, and I do. It only took me, I think, 3 months. So I think it was 3 months of titration, which is really short. And again, that reduces the pressure, because that's the other thing about private diagnosis is you've got, you pay for the assessment, but then you pay for the drugs, and then you pay for the consultation with the pharmacist as a follow-up. And then you choose to pay if you have another appointment, with the psychiatrist, which of course you would want. And I wanted, because I wanted more answers. I wanted the chance to talk, and especially after my autism diagnosis that came a few months after. But I can't afford that. I can't.
I think we heard the other day, didn't we, in one of our sessions, that pills don't give you skills. So you might have this new lease of focus from taking the medication, but which might make it easier to write those emails. I keep picking on the emails because I really relate to that as being like a disabling thing. I might have loads of other things to do, but to write that email to a client or whatever, you think, if I get this wrong, are we going to lose the project or whatever that? So I wonder if there have been any skills or any things that you've picked up that have really helped you. And I wonder, I don't know whether you have had any coaching yourself, but also I'm interested to know what has led you to the direction of training to become a coach yourself.
Well, so I think the ADHD. So I was diagnosed with ADHD, but before I even got to the appointment, I'd already come across other things. So as you do. So in reading then in a different way, because it was now at its broadest, I'd only been kind of dipping into it for my son, because I was just waiting for the experts to kind of show up and then to start their process. I didn't need, and actually I didn't want to be the pushy mum, and I didn't want to give a label to my son before it was diagnosed, because that might not be the right thing. And actually, again, the stigma thing, my family didn't want me to, pre-diagnose him based on, the pediatrician and everything else. So I'd only really dipped into it for them. But as soon as it was kind of something that, yes, the doctor had said yes, and then it was a case of moving towards the diagnosis, I then went full on into it like everything else. So I don't do anything half measures in terms of research. It's a huge part of me. It's a huge part of my job. So I research things, and I research them well, and I look far and wide. And so I am a sponge. I literally soaked up everything I could. And in doing that, I came across, obviously I was exposed then to the wider thing about neurodivergence at its widest. And I had the most profound, for me, light bulb moment around SPD, so sensory processing disorder.
Yeah.
That was just incredible. I think I've cried twice. That was the first one. And that was probably, about March time last year, because, I'd struggled and I'd never known, and I couldn't explain it. I mean, and so many times, so many examples through my life, but it was that, for me, sensory processing is not just a daily thing. It's a moment thing. I am so influenced by my senses. Every sense is heightened for me, or 8. I'll let you figure out the 8. There is 8. So all 8, yeah. And so I was, wow, how did I not ever know about this, and it was incredible because that was a massive relief and a release, because that really made me feel like I wasn't completely mad, um, because it's everything, I can't even begin to touch the surface. It is an iceberg for me, sensory processing. It's everything in my environment. So I get overwhelmed and exhausted visually. I can be, I hear things that people don't hear, which is a bit freaky, but it's because I hear different frequencies, and I react to different things that people don't ordinarily react to. I am so sensitive to sound. I can't have, certain frequencies just really disturb me. I can't cope with them for a second. Equally, I can't cope with different lights and different lighting sections. I used to really struggle in work with fluorescent lighting. These are horrendous for me. Flickers, I can't abide. I can't do with, like at the moment, with light strong and we get the light changes. That really disturbs me immediately. I'm hypervigilant as well. And so, I was changing my clothes 10 times a day, is normal for me, because I can't, I physiologically, I have a medical condition. I can't regulate my temperature, but I also can't cope with textures, at different points in the day, depending on how I'm feeling, on different temperatures, different environments. It's cost me a fortune in buying clothes so I can, because everything in the last 3 years has just kind of fallen apart, and that's probably to do with menopause. And there's probably another lady or ladies that will talk to you about that. So SPD was huge, and then came my autism diagnosis. And that was for me, because I think it was the SPD that then crossed over massively into autism. And I did the RITVO, the RADS test, which is for what they used to call it Asperger's, but now they call it's just high function autism. And I scored almost maximum points.
Yeah.
I scored ridiculously high, and it's not a laughing matter, actually. And I don't want to make light of it, because I'm still trying to process it. Some of the questions that you have to, I think there's about 80 questions for that particular test. And I found it, and I found the scoring system as well. And some of the questions are really hard. Some of the questions really make you search your soul. Some of the questions you really don't want to put your true answer, because they hurt too much to do so. I'm going to pick the puppy up now because it's moaning. Hey, Jovi. This is Jovi. If you can see
hey.
Say,
that is a puppy. I just see
he is. He's a Dachshund. Can you see him? I don't know where.
Just to the top of the head.
Yeah. Hello, Jovi.
Oh, there we go.
No, I don't want. Oh gosh, no, Joe, I don't want that. No, you're gonna have to sit nicely, or you can get down again. I'm gonna get down. Go on. Yes, so that crossed over into autism, and so that again was like, wow, okay, that really made sense of me. And by that point, I think I was more ready for it than the ADHD thing, because I had read a lot and absorbed a lot, and there's so much out there now to read. There's so many people talking about autism, and particularly autism in women, and autism and ADHD in women, and but the SPD was the most powerful one, and so I was diagnosed with those. So I ended up with, by April last year, with being diagnosed with both ADHD and autism, and had to do the similar level of soul searching and reflection and everything that we talked about of ADHD for autism, and go through the same process of all the forms that you have to do, and the very long assessment process, actually, in terms of that meeting is much longer for autism, no treatment, obviously, and no additional costs, therefore. But I think a very profound thing. And then acknowledging that with both, you live in a paradox. You're
Right.
pulled, and I don't know how many people I'm coming across more and more. So I don't know if anyone you've spoken to is both, but so they pull in a paradox, and for you to living in a paradox, so they fight. But again, I think by that point I was ready to see. I always like to see the glass half full, so I was ready to see the positive in it, and I sort of looking at my life and thinking, wow, I've been really successful, and I've been really, I'm not going to say lucky, because I haven't been lucky. I've fought really hard. I've worked really hard. And I'm mostly done okay. But I have, what others have seen has not been what's been going on. The picture that other people have seen, how anyone might view my life, and even that comes down to the closest people in my world, is not my life in terms of how I've been experiencing it, what I've been going through, because what's going on in my head and my body each and every moment, I don't think can never possibly really be understood by anyone that doesn't live it as well. And now I know, as I say, I'm learning even more. So now I know that, and this has only been over the last few months, that I've got things like PTSD in the mix, which is different. And for someone that's autistic and has ADHD, having chronic PTSD is something that takes on a different kind of presentation. And then to be dyspraxic as well, I realized that was kind of became clear. And most recently the PDA thing, my God, I really cried when I stumbled across that video on YouTube that made me go, oh, what's this? I really cried then, because that I can see so strongly in me, and that's probably it feels like the one that I really want to talk about most, but actually is going to be the hardest to talk about, but I think needs to be talked about, because I can see that in my son and my daughter. And I know that is what's really the thing that's made them struggle so much, and why I struggled so much and still struggle. And I think understanding and knowledge is always the key, but to being able to move forward. You kind of asked me about things that I've done. It's been a long journey, and I think for me it's all interwoven with my health as well. And so in parallel to this, I'll just go off on a tangent if you don't mind, just once more. In parallel to these diagnoses, I'd also stumbled across, it was a very strange time last year, I stumbled upon some information about Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. Now, I'd never heard of it, so I don't expect you to, but there's more people now that are starting to hear of Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, especially those with who are neurodivergent. So I had come across Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, and specifically Hypermobile Type. And the reason why it rang a bell when I literally came across it must have just been a leaflet, I think, in a hospital or a doctor's clinic that I'd read. And it really, it made sense again of me. So it's a condition that you have lifelong. And I had been a child who, could do things that made other kids and family laugh, kind of like, double jointed and, doing weird contortionist things, was good at doing gymnastics if I weren't so clumsy, which comes from dyspraxia. So that explains things. And could actually kind of understand and compute what they were asking me to do with my body. But, in terms of flexibility, bang on. I was always stretchy, and I always, so I knew there was something, and I didn't know the term hypermobile actually until after I'd had my daughter and my son. So even though I kind of could still touch my toes when I was over term with my daughter. I could still
Wow.
touch the floor freely,
Yeah.
and I was huge,
Yeah.
really huge. I was 50 centimeters, so large that in the hospital they measured me and went, "It's 50." Like
Yeah.
she said to the other midwife, I was enormous. But only baby enormous. But
Yeah.
so I'd only heard term when after that I'd gone to be assessed for surgery. And in that assessment, the consultant actually noticed I had hernias in my stomach. And then he got me to do something. He said, "Oh, you're hypermobile or something." So that was, and it was literally passing comment, and it kind of stuck in my mind. And then I didn't have the surgery, and I didn't see him again. And I kind of remember mentioning it along the way to doctors, because I speak to a lot of doctors. And I said, "Oh, someone mentioned I was hypermobile," because I think by that point I must have been having my back issues and my issues in my spine, which is again a separate thing. But so that was it. But it turns out, that if you're hypermobile, it is something you should really be aware of. And if you're hypermobile, and then other things seemingly happen to you, like you bruise easily, like your skin is incredibly stretchy, like you don't heal very well, like you're in pain an incredible amount, you probably have gut issues, and you have maybe other people in the family like you. There's a lot of stuff, and I won't again go into the diagnostic criteria, but there is a lot of diagnostic criteria. And it turns out that I met them and I was diagnosed last June.
Yeah. Well,
So
you wouldn't get
yeah,
that from just the term hypermobile. All those
no,
other things related to it, you wouldn't.
no. So you wouldn't join the dots, no. And
Yeah.
there's a fantastic charity that I'm going to do a massive plug for,
Mhm.
called SEDS Connective, and that's SEDS Connective. So symptomatic EDS Connective, and founded by a fantastic lady called Jane Green. So if you Google her, you'll see her pop up on Google quite a few times and
Mhm.
link to papers and studies and stuff. And I came across something. I came across them, and they are fantastic. And she's got, anyway, they have a tagline, which is, if you can't connect the issues, think connective tissues. So
Mhm.
Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is a connective tissue condition. And connective tissue is essentially everything in your body that's not bone, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah. So, if there's spectrums with this, right? There's spectrums. There's actually 13 conditions of Ehlers-Danlos, and 12 are incredibly rare. And they can test for the genetic markers, and a lot of them are incredibly serious.
Mm.
Life-threatening. Hypermobile type isn't life-threatening, but it is lifelong. And actually, it is the one that is most diverse. So it manifests across the body. And if you don't know, if children aren't diagnosed, or adolescents, young people aren't diagnosed, then you continue using your body, assuming your body is normal and functions, and actually your body doesn't, because things stretch and they don't go back. Things go out of place and they don't go back.
Mm.
You don't heal so well. Your gut doesn't work as well. And if the longer you go, like me, unfortunately, going the length of time I have, and enjoying things like I could be more flexible than most people, comes in quite handy for a lot of sports and things. And I've always been into sport, fitness. So you can damage yourself. And if you
Mm.
have a couple of car accidents, like I did,
Mhm.
when my children were young, well, no, just before my children were born, actually. They were just before our children were born. The damage that's caused by the car accidents and not resolved because I couldn't afford to pay privately for physio. And at the time I was just
Yeah.
given a leaflet that says, go home, take some ibuprofen and paracetamol, and, come back if if something serious happens. But apart from that, you'll be fine. Just give it time. Turns out actually that's not a good thing,
Yeah.
because because the body just doesn't do what the body would do if it had, the same collagen and the ability to ability to work in the same way. So arthritis sets in early, and I've had symptomatic arthritis for, 15 years. So in my early 30s, it started to get quite bad. And my mum, it was in my mum, it was in my nan, and my granddad. And, there's, so that, and gut issues I've had since I started university. And only now I'm getting treatment for, because only now I'm realizing. And with EDS often comes, it has some friends that often come along. So one of them is called POTS, which is a form of dysautonomia. So that's your basically your body's ability, your nervous system. So with POTS, you have an effect where your body's fine if you're laying down, but when you stand up, your heart rate increases much faster to a much higher level, whilst your blood pressure drops. So you get dizziness and nausea. Some people drop, they faint.
Yeah.
And you have problem with heat, and it's again something you can go and read. I'm sure people can go and read about, but it's very it is, for most people it's disabling. For some people it's incredibly disabling. So I now know that. Well, I'm waiting to see a London hospital this month actually for that. But I have problems with dysautonomia, and I've had them for a long time and never realised. And then there's another bedfellow or friend called MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome, which is a fun one, and that it's definitely not fun. So that is where the mast cells are the kind of the first level of immune response. So if you have, say you go out and prune the roses, right? You go and you get a thorn in your arm. You take the thorn out, your mast cells are kind of go along, they go, oh, hang on, should we be worried about this? Do we need to set the alarm? Do we need to, kick off a full scale reaction? And I think for most people, I don't know what happens with you, but I'm assuming that you'll have a thorn in your arm, you'll take it out, you have a very localized reaction, but 20 minutes later it'll be gone. You won't have anything in your arm. Yeah. That's not the same for me. And people with mast cell, it is basically that, but imagine that everywhere. So
it's having an extreme reaction.
Extreme reactions. So extreme reactions. So you get extreme reactions to pretty much anything and everything. Again, it's kind of proportional usually to how you're feeling and how generally well you are. Some people can have anaphylactic reactions. I've had anaphylactic reactions previously in the past, but not for a long time. And touch wood, I'm okay at the moment. But you have problems with histamine, and histamine's contained in a huge amount of food. And then there's foods that encourage histamine production, and then there's food that can prevent your ability to deal with histamine. So with mast cell activation syndrome, if it worsens and it starts to get to the point where you're having incredible problems with, think IBS at its worst, and then combine it with nausea and feeling incredibly sick or vomiting, plus add on pretty much anything can cause a skin reaction and cause you to go into rashes and stuff. You can also it also amplifies the pot stuff that goes on. So mast cell activation syndrome is not fun. And it can be random. So I can be fine with, something like cotton wool one day, and then that can set me off, and I can have breathing problems just because I don't use them anymore now. But, if I used a cotton wool bud, I could then just, start to struggle to breathe. Paper bag. I remember that. That was a noticeable one when I went to a farm, a petting zoo when my kids were young. And for some reason, the paper bag that we went to put the animal feed in, that was enough to set me off. But yeah, so I'm on since January, I've been on an incredibly restricted diet via the dietitians.
Yeah.
Loads of supplements that do work. I'm really pleased with the supplements I'm now taking, and lots of things that I can't eat and things I have to steer clear of. And so generally, again, I have to control my environment a lot to manage that one. So
It sounds
so
very sort of tricky, obviously, because with ADHD, having a consistent routine is sort of quite really hard to
challenge. Yeah.
implement. And
Yeah.
so with all these other things that you've got going on, to be regimented with that sounds like a challenge in
It
itself.
absolutely is. Yeah. So I was finally, so I did finally accept that I was disabled by all of this going on, because I don't think I've even touched on all of them. I've got fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed with ME. 2013. I've had surgery on my neck. I'm probably going to have more on my neck. I've got lower back issues, and I have to have steroid injections every 6 to 9 months to manage that. I've got problems with my eyes. My eyes are extremely dry, so I'm waiting to have serum eye drops, which is quite exciting, but a bit weird. Got to keep them in the fridge apparently. I have to kind of have special creams that I put on my skin, and special stuff to wash my hair. And I was finally diagnosed, or finally recognized. It took me 6 months after realizing that I needed to contact and PIP and apply for PIP, and then I did. And the process of PIP nearly broke me, and I would dearly love to talk for an hour just on PIP. Applying for that, because my word, I just couldn't believe it. I just wanted to scream to the world how unjust that system is, how unfair and how dehumanizing it is for people to do. But that, really made it clear to me in doing that how much ADHD, alongside all of my physical issues, makes daily things so difficult. And you asked me probably about 20 minutes ago now, what have I found that helps? Alexa's help. I have to really kind of not listen to people, friends and colleagues that might tell me about the conspiracy theories about stuff like that. But technology helps in terms of reminders. I've got Alexa in every room. I am constantly, if you watched me on a fly on the wall, constantly going around my house going, "What time is it, Alexa?" I get in the car now and I ask Alexa the time, and then I realize that Alexa's not in my car. I even go to kind of say it I might be anywhere else, could be anywhere, and I'll find myself just about to ask Alexa what the time is, because I do it so many times a day. And yes, obviously I might look a bit strange if I'm in a hospital waiting room and Alexa the time. But it's literally, so I use Alexa for reminders, for alarms, literally for some points in the day, or when I've got a very, awful lot of things in my head, then I will set 2 or 3 different rooms of alarms, so that if I move and I one will catch me, I usually space them about 5 minutes apart. So Alexa's is a great thing. Lists, paper, journals, reminders, pen and paper in pretty much every room I might go into. I use other people a lot to remind me. I link tasks to things, so I kind of join things together. I have every color of Post-it note that I think Amazon can provide.
I'm a big fan of Post-it notes.
Post-it notes are a good one. I have a couple of whiteboards. I literally just surround myself as much as I can with aids, and I almost, every time I pause and my brain settles slightly, I reset and recalibrate and work out what I'm doing. I have to have mini routines, and I think this is where, for me, talking just about ADHD, it comes hard, because I lean into, I suppose, what is the autistic side of me, which likes to have structure and likes to have routine. And so I build routines. My problem is I forget the routines. so I do that, and like I say, I'm mostly okay. I think my life is so full, that, and it's mostly full of things I have to do. So even with like the medications, the chemist does them. So the chemist,
Yeah.
now I'm at the level where the chemist sets them all out, and I have to take medications, I think 7 times a day. So so I there's a few that I'm responsible for, but they're like, I have some that I take early mornings, so they're literally by my bed. So the minute I wake up and I turn, I see my dosette boxes, and the blue one's on the top, and I know the blue one's first, and then the white ones. And then when I've taken the blue one, I have to move it and put it underneath the white one, because the white one comes next, and that's about 20 minutes later. And I usually use like having the radio on as a kind of prompt as well. So like I listen to a song and I know I've got 1 or 2 songs or whatever more before I can, I usually count the songs or something like that. I'm terrible at brushing my teeth. In terms of, I don't mean brush my teeth, I mean that I just get lost in brushing my teeth. I think I relax when I brush my teeth, and I've got a 2-minute timer, and I'm sure I brush my teeth for 4 or 6 minutes sometimes. I just, that really gets me. That does. I can't keep control of the time when I'm brushing my teeth. That's no. So I do have time blindness. I have clocks in every room still, very old fashioned, but they help. And I move things and I use things to visually remind me. So I do a lot of kind of structuring of things so that I will see something and it will remind me to do something else. So there's a lot of that goes on in my life.
I try that method, but it ends up that, I will move something closer to the stairs for me to take it upstairs. But I then become blind to it, as in I can see it there, but I'll be like, I'll do that, and it's another time. And things can stay misplaced for months. I'm just conscious of the time that we've got left, and I just wanted to make sure that we covered this. But given your background and your journey into training to be an ADHD coach yourself, is there any particular area of people you want to help with ADHD, given your sort of experience with the challenges that you have yourself? And with that, can you tell us where we can find you to get in contact with you for coaching?
Fantastic. Thanks, because this is my whole life has been leading up to this moment. I truly believe that now, and I've kind of been in training for what I've been doing now, again on multiple levels. So I'm training with you to be an ADHD coach, and I'm loving the training, and I do want to coach people with ADHD because I think I'm in a reasonably good place now, but also I can really I've been there and I've struggled for such a long time. And I've really had to work and use all my resilience and all my willpower to actually, be able to be successful and to be successful in my work, in my career, and actually in an awful lot of things. I've been really successful in so many things, and I'm really pleased about that. And I think I've kind of shown, I can look back on myself, and I think people can look at me that know me and say they either didn't know, I had no idea, or, they will go, wow, actually, not only did I not know, you did really well. You were
putting
actually
systems in place to mask or to cover up those challenges that before you know about ADHD, you just think, well, everybody else can do this, and I
just need to work harder. I just need to do something. I need to find a way. But also, I've really harnessed what I think we're talking about, touched on a few times. We haven't really kind of spoken too much, and I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people that have already said a similar thing. But I've really used the power. I've really used. I don't like it. It amuses me, the term superpower, and sometimes I do use the analogy, and I'm sure I will use it hopefully with young people that I'd like to coach. That's one area. I'd like to help the people that were like my children, that were going through and suffering, and they didn't know, and they were struggling, and they needn't have done, and they shouldn't do, and particularly those that go on and do A levels and on to university, which were so difficult. And I would have just, I don't know what I've done if someone was there to help me. I would have just really, it would have changed everything for me, I think. So I want to help young people, but so I think I've really harnessed my abilities to focus, to hyper focus. We talk about that a lot, don't we? But I really use it. My ability to see the big picture and the little, so I can do the whole, blue sky thing. I can do the big picture, the strategic, do strategy stuff is really my forte. Seeing, being able to project forward to the end of the road and then work back, I can do that in the blink of an eye. I can read and absorb information so easily and translate it into something tangible. So that really helps in my career. And all of these skills together have meant that, led me naturally into what I do, which is around, I'm actually a regulatory affairs specialist. I'm a subject matter expert now in some European legislation that relates to medical devices, specifically IVDs, so things like COVID tests and HIV tests and stuff. So that's what I do, and I've been doing that for a long time. But where I've kind of used the ADHD stuff, I think, again, is to get very deep knowledge and be able to really explain it, because I know it so much more deeply than I think most people do, because I like to really know the ins and outs. I give myself the time to focus. But then, to be able to help people see that. And the other big part of my journey to date to get to me where I am in my career has been around quality and continuous improvement and process engineering. And so I started kind of as an engineer, a quality engineer, and with a language degree. So it's a nice, not an inroad, but there you go. Did languages and ended up doing, going into it, first into chilled food, then into engineering, through consumer goods, kind of rising all the time, and then into smart metering, and then into medical devices, and kind of climbing each time that ladder, but actually all focused on people, all focused on looking at business excellence, how to be the enabler in a business to improve by using people, and getting people to kind of look at what they're doing, look at the systems and the processes in place, and actually project, help them see the customer's position, if they're directly relevant, or the effect on the end customer of the process that is being used to manufacture the products, or even their difficulties of a process that doesn't work, but they're just no one's asked them previously. So, and all of that coming together in me then being able to kind of amass all of this knowledge and experience, and be able then to impart it back to people in junior positions. So I've kind of risen through the ranks and got to level of manager, and then senior level manager, and then kind of director level, and having teams, and then teams below teams, and having multiple teams, and pan-European teams, and now I'm talking to people globally, and I'm imparting the skills and knowledge and wisdom I have to them, but in that kind of mentoring and coaching type way, to actually get them to be able to take, approach what they do differently, but with confidence that they are right, mostly that they know what they're doing. They just needed someone to help them see it. So that's what I've done up until now. And then with my journey with being ill and trying to not be ill, basically, the only way for me, and again, it's ADHD, distracted by distraction, in the words of T.S. Eliot. I keep myself distracted, because if I don't keep myself distracted, then I will be consumed by my thoughts and by the experience that I can that I'm going through in my body. So, I'm in pain 24 hours a day. I don't want to live in that pain. I distract myself. So all of this coming together is why I'm doing the coaching, and it's going to be part of a bigger thing for me, or it is part of a bigger thing, which is to help people that are chronically ill. So you said about the coaching, I really have got a natural affinity with anyone that is living with a chronic illness, and that could be something like diabetes or asthma as a younger person, or unfortunately as you get older, then you start to then naturally accumulate other things as well, and it becomes more complicated. And as someone that put 30 plus conditions on their PIP form, I can know and understand, and I know what it feels like to be just kind of slipping through the cracks in some way, or just spinning so many different plates that you don't know where to look and get information. You don't know how, you're too tired, you're too exhausted. So I want to help all those people directly, if I can, through coaching, and maybe swaying out of coaching a little bit into more of that kind of like more general support, almost like a consultancy, but it's, one-to-one support that might be less coaching, more just actually, let's help you get through this. So missingspoons.com is the company I've created. And I'm on a real mission with Missing Spoons. At the moment, if you visit, you're just going to see a nice, pretty web page. But I promise you, the content's coming, and the content will be everything and anything that I can kind of just literally put out there, that comes from the thousands and thousands of hours I've spent over the last 30 years constructively and deliberately amassing in terms of knowledge and wisdom about not just about medical conditions and how to live with them, and then my own experience of living with them, and what works and what doesn't work, and what to try, and the the current research on everything, because I keep abreast of everything, but also the fantastic people that are out there in charities and then in individual capacities, trying, to help people, also offering stuff, but maybe a little bit more siloed, or not a little bit, but siloed in what they're doing. And I want to bring and connect people coming to the website to those people, to those places, make it easy. And hopefully people will come away with, even just the smallest thing, or something that could really change their life. Because, I suppose bringing it to a natural kind of close, I've been reading a book which I treated myself, and I love it. And it's called If I Could Tell You Just One Thing, and it's by an author called Richard Reeved. And it's a book full of, on the cover it tells you it's a book full of encounters with remarkable people and their most valuable advice.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds fascinating.
And it is fantastic. And that's kind of really, for me, I think that probably, without me realizing subconsciously when I bought the book, because I bought it, about a year ago, and I've only just set up Missing Spoons, and only just very instinctively, with about 3 days notice, signed up for the course that we're doing, Laurence. But it's, there's some people just need, somewhere to go on a day when they just want to know what's the best electric can opener. If your hands don't really work anymore, like mine don't, or where can I find cutlery that's nice and easy to hold, that's not toddler cutlery, or isn't actually just for disabled people, because I don't recognize myself as a disabled person. I've just got hands that don't work very well and I need something. Or it could be, how do I find all the charities that exist about, Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, or could help me, or Sjogren's syndrome, or, all of the different things that kind of bedfellows that come together, and they're all out there. There's 1,000 charities registered in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many do any of us know of, and how many would any of us know of? And at the point at which you need information, you're most likely, if you're chronically ill, or even if you just have ADHD, I'm not downplaying it, guys, but some days you just want something and you don't want to work for it. You don't want to have to use even more of your energy because it isn't something that you're super interested in. You just want it. And I know that. I just want to be able to find, I just want someone to say to me, I would have wanted anyone to say to me, just try this website. Yeah, just go and have a look there because they'll probably point you in the right direction. And that's really what I would just want to do. And it kind of like ties in with the coaching. I want, through the coaching, it's about the other person and it's about asking questions. And I have been coached and I've been coached by a few different people with completely different approaches. And, it's amazing. The power of just having an hour or less, being in the presence of someone with whom you just feel completely relaxed. You can literally just be yourself. And then you can talk about with them and work through with them leading you in a way in which it's so natural. It doesn't feel like a kind of a role play. It's not a role play. It doesn't feel like it. It just feels like you just talk with someone and you just find yourself finding the answers that out of that room you weren't able to find for yourself. I read in this book there's quite a not a nice comment about life coaching in this book by Stephen Fry. And Stephen Fry, I think he's has ADHD or is autistic, one or the other or both, right? And I was quite surprised when I first read it because for his opening comment is that something really kind of not very nice about life coaches or life coaching. But his point is that stating the obvious. He doesn't need or want someone to state the obvious. And I don't think that's what a coach does. I think maybe he just had a bad coach, right? Because it's not about stating the obvious. A good coach, and that's what I want to be, of course, is someone that just gives you the space and guides you or points you, whichever coach you need and however they do it, to something that you really do know, or you will find the answer to. But if it wasn't in that room, you may not get there, for a while. And he doesn't like goals either. And I identify with that also. I identify with Stephen Fry, so I don't like goals either, but I like targets and I like aiming for something, but I also like not having to, if I miss it, I'm not going to feel like a failure. And I think that was his main point. He didn't, I think, he didn't identify with goals in the fact that if you don't get there, then your life ends, something is traumatically bad and wrong. And I don't think coaching, certainly how we're learning it and the way I think, we're going to be, it's going to be like that. So coaching fundamentally for me, and I don't think I've really touched on it, even though it's the most profound thing, for me is kindness. That's what I'm about. I've met so many people. I've made it my mission, my way of being, to actually to speak to people, to see people, literally see them, to hear them, to listen to them, and just accept them as they are and just roll with it. And I've done some really random things that have ended up in some really weird places with some really strange people on the face of it, but they've been amazing moments. And the friends that I've got in all the places I've worked, people now that I couldn't tell you their names because I'm terrible with names, and I couldn't tell you when I worked with them because it probably was 20 years ago, but I still remember them. Because you make connections with people, and we need connections. It's actually inbuilt. We have to have connections. People need people. And, and people together are amazing. People, what can be achieved by two people coming together is so much greater than the sum of two.
What struck me as you sort of explained, your reason for coaching and who you want to help coach, I think sort of tying that together in me making sense of it, what we've been learning about coaching is not necessarily about telling somebody what they should do, because that's not going to help them.
No.
They may reject the answer quite quickly, or just not want to do it because they didn't come. If they come to the solution, if you lead them there and they grasp it themselves, then they're more likely to take that on. And I think what's important to from very specifically your background and how you've arrived here is that understanding of, because obviously you've talked about a lot of different chronic illnesses and those effects, but also the effects of trying to navigate through those chronic illnesses whilst having ADHD. And so having somebody, if somebody out there is having the same difficulties, to have somebody listening to them that empathizes with them and resonates with all the issues that they're having, and also understanding how challenging that might be to push through, to contact a doctor or anybody else who needs to support them in order to get those diagnoses. To have somebody there who understands what that feels like, or those, even just recognizing the challenges and why some certain sessions might be difficult for them, is really important. And like you say, having a conversation between two people when there isn't that sense of judgment, or this person doesn't understand, or this person's asking me to do this and that's going to be impossible, it allows them to then open up even more to explore how they're going to find a solution for themselves. Exactly. And I think that's really powerful. And one other thing is that how you said everything in your life has sort of led you to this. I think it's a really powerful thing that when you find that thing that, I use the word purpose, it really is a powerful thing to know that you've arrived at that place, and to, the joy of sort of being able to feel that you can offer something up to the world that is genuine and from the heart, and that's sort of like a really powerful thing, and a lovely thing to a place to be. And I wish you all the best with missing spoons, and I know you said that it's just a holding page at the moment, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how that develops, and and all the people that you can help with that.
I'm really thank you, Laurence. It's been lovely to talk to you, and I'm really loving all the people that we're meeting on the course, and but again, the wider things that it introduces everyone that we meet, has always is a doorway, aren't they? They're a portal to more things, and everything's an opportunity to learn, and to just try to be better, and I don't want to stray into. I'm going to try desperately not to stray into the territory that people like Stephen Fry don't like, because I don't want maybe there's people out there in our community that we have ADHD and equally don't like the kind of things that can be coined and said about coaching, because actually I think you just articulated really well. It's I think particularly ADHD, people with ADHD and living with like me, other things, if someone is in the place where they really want to move on, to actually to be more capable to do things that they either once did or want to do, and know they've got the power themselves, just aren't able. They're just stuck. They're just stuck. And I've been stuck so many times, and usually, unfortunately, if you're stuck, it comes with, and if you're not careful, well, for me, it always comes with loneliness. You feel lonely as well. Yeah. Because, you then are, especially if if you kind of recognize and you identify as having ADHD, you do feel stuck and you do feel lonely, because you then feel different. You do feel like, you can't explain to other people because they won't understand. And I think that's the thing, we understand. We've been there. We're not been there. We're still there. It still happens. No one's perfect and no one is amazing. So amazing in terms of magical. Yeah. So that's the thing. That's what I'm really hoping, is that people will benefit, and the more individuals that benefit. I think for me, that's the other side of it, is I'm very much aware of everything. We are all connected. You know, some of those connections are really strong, and some of those are kind of less so. But, you know, anything that affects me doesn't just affect me. It affects my family. It affects the people I work with. And so if I'm struggling, you know, then that's going to have an effect. But actually, in reality, I'm probably struggling on the same day or the day after. 2, 3, 4 people within my really close network are also struggling.
Yeah.
And so the more people that can be helped is I wish I'm going to have to find a better word than helped, but the more people that can benefit from the skills that, you know, that we're learning, and we're investing in learning, and, you know, that tie into us really wanting to impart, you know, wisdom, I suppose, and learning to others that could give them, you know, the ability to just adjust and change some things and do things slightly differently, that in turn then has such a profound effect for them, that then doesn't just lift them. Yeah, that won't just lift them. Yeah. And that's for me. So, and I see a real opportunity there as well, is, you know, and I can see me hopefully coaching, you know, family or friends of people, not just those with ADHD. So I think, you know, the possibility is great, not just for me, but for anyone else, and everyone else that's doing similar things. You know, I think there is, without getting too profound, because we've run so over, but, you know, there's a lot of tough things going on, you know, and I think I really sense and see that there is a real will to actually turn things to, you know, turn the dial to something better, you know, but it has to be on an individual basis now, you know, but the sum of many, you know, is just, it's just not the, you can't even express how packed the power that, you know, that comes. I can feel it, you know, I can feel it when I've coached someone, and then I go in and I talk to my family. I am so lifted just by having that conversation. So I stop and I think, wow, that person then is doing the same thing. That's for 2 people coming together for an hour, that might have lifted 8, 10 people, whatever, you know, I don't know what the exponential growth is, but so that's what I'm
wonderful
excited
thought,
about.
actually.
It's a wonderful thought. Anyway, I'll leave you that. Your dog has been peacefully quiet and sleep the whole time.
Yeah, he does. He waits, and then, but he'll come. There'll come a time soon when he'll start pouring at me, saying, "Come on, it's time for a walk."
Yeah, it must be
right. But on that wonderful note, that wonderful thought, let's wrap it up. But thank you so much for spending the time to chat with me. And like I say, I wish you all the best with mrexperience.com. And I can't wait to see how that turns out.
Thanks, Laurence. And I can't wait for you. I'm looking forward to your TED Talk that you eventually do. And
one day maybe.
one day, and I've got the same aspirations. So
it would just be a case of trying to narrowing it down to one thing that
15 minutes. That's that's a challenge. Anyway, I'm going to ponder that one while I get some lunch, I think. But thanks, Laurence.
Okay,
it's been great.
All right,
thanks a lot.
Take care.
Cheers.
Well, there we have it. Thank you so much for listening this far. If you want to hear more episodes, then please subscribe on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you use. It really helps to spread the word. So if you know anyone this episode could help, then please share it with your friends. If you want to follow me on social media, I am on Instagram at ADHD_goals, and you can find me on Facebook too. If you want to get in touch with the show, then you can email me at hello@adhdgoals.co. And finally, if you're struggling to manage your ADHD and you would like me to be your coach, then please head over to my website and get in touch. Until next time, bye for now.